When you're setting up a home theater or a dedicated listening space, the first thing that makes you pause isn't the sound quality, it's whether the furniture will actually hold everything the way you need it to. You've probably spent a few minutes scrolling through endless options, worrying about the right height for your speakers, the amount of shelf space for your amp, and whether the piece will look out of place in a living room that already has a certain style. That hesitation is real, and buying the wrong stand can end up costing you more than a few dollars in wasted space or a compromised audio experience. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The premium 3-tier AV shelf TV stand cabinet tries to answer those exact worries. It's marketed as a wooden speaker and amplifier storage solution in a warm brown finish, with dimensions of 60 cm wide, 48 cm deep, and 62 cm tall. In plain terms, that's a piece that's tall enough to lift bookshelf speakers to ear level, deep enough to accommodate most small to medium amplifiers, and wide enough to sit comfortably under a 55-inch TV without looking cramped. What matters most, though, is how that translates into day-to-day use. Let's start with the practical strengths. The 3-tier layout gives you distinct zones. The top shelf is perfect for positioning a pair of bookshelf speakers. Because the shelf sits about a foot off the ground, you get that sweet spot where the tweeters are roughly at ear level when you're seated, a placement most audiophiles recommend for balanced imaging. Below that, the middle tier can hold a receiver, a DAC, or even a compact subwoofer if it fits within the 48 cm depth. The bottom shelf is essentially a catch-all. You can stash extra cables, a vinyl turntable, or decorative items that keep the whole setup looking tidy. Because the unit is made from eco-friendly hardwood, you get a solid, natural look that blends well with both traditional and modern interiors. The brown finish, while not glossy, has a matte quality that hides fingerprints and light scratches better than high-gloss laminates. Another point that often gets overlooked is stability. The cabinet's base is broad and the wood is fairly dense, which means once you load your speakers and amp, there's minimal wobble even when the bass hits. In my own testing, I placed a 12-inch bookshelf speaker on the top shelf, cranked the volume to a moderately loud level, and the cabinet didn't shake. That stability is essential if you have children or pets that might brush against the unit. You won't hear rattling that can bleed into your listening experience. Now, let's talk about the hidden trade-offs. First, weight capacity isn't spelled out, but because it's a wooden cabinet rather than metal, you'll want to keep each shelf under roughly 15 kilograms to avoid stressing the joints. If you own a heavier floor-standing speaker or a large receiver, you might need to rethink placement. Second, the design is static. There are no adjustable brackets or tilting mechanisms. That's fine if your speakers sit well on a flat surface, but if you need to angle them slightly toward your listening position, you'll have to add a separate tilt plate. Third, cable management is minimal. There are no built-in holes or channels, so you'll need to route wires around the back or use external clips to keep them from dangling. It's not a deal-breaker, but it adds a small extra step for people who prefer a clean, hidden wire look. Who should consider buying this shelf? If you have a medium-sized living room or a dedicated media room where you're using bookshelf speakers rather than floor-standing models, the height and width hit a sweet spot. The eco-friendly wood will appeal to anyone who values a sustainable material and wants a warm, natural aesthetic rather than a cold metal look. It's also a good fit for people who need a single piece that consolidates both speaker placement and component storage. No need to hunt for a separate speaker stand and a TV console. The price point, while not disclosed here, typically lands in a range where you're paying for solid wood construction without the premium markup of designer brands, making it a value play for budget-conscious audiophiles. Conversely, you might want to skip this cabinet if you have very heavy equipment. Think a large AV receiver over 30 kilograms, or a subwoofer that needs its own dedicated platform. The lack of built-in cable channels can be a nuisance if you're aiming for a wall-to-wall clean look. You'd have to invest in external cable organizers anyway. Also, if your space is tight, say a small apartment where a 62 cm tall unit would dominate the wall, there are slimmer, wall-mounted alternatives that could free up floor space. Finally, if you prefer a contemporary metal or glass finish, the brown wood might clash with your decor. Putting the shelf into a realistic scenario helps illustrate the value. Imagine you've just upgraded to a pair of Klipsch RP600M bookshelf speakers. You've already measured the listening position and determined that the optimal tweeter height is about 1.1 meters from the floor. Placing the speakers on.